Welcome back to Building Communities podcast presented by the BIA of Central South Carolina. I'm your host, Brian Arnold, and today I'm very fortunate to have with us Rus Horton of First Community Bank and a member of the executive board for the BIA.
Yes, sir.
Rus, thank you so much for being here. One of the things I've wanted to ask you is, how did you get into the lending business?
Well, crazy enough, ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be a mortgage banker. Yeah, really. And summertime during breaks, my parents would send me to mortgage camp. My high school electives were, the 3 C's of underwriting, calculating self-employment income. And of course, none of that's true.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
'Cause like all of us, we just stumbled into it. I stumbled into it in 1998.
Okay.
Just happened to have a roommate whose cousin, the three of us, we all played softball together. His cousin owned a mortgage company, a brokerage company, and I just took a leap. And
you're on the residential side, but the development side of things, or?
Well, no, I'm a residential mortgage banker, but
Okay.
with First Community Bank, we have all 4 sides of the bank. You've got the residential mortgage side, you've got the commercial and retail side, you've got the financial consultants side. So the commercial side is what the builders and developers would need, but the home buyer needs me.
What is the thing that kind of keeps you doing what you're doing? I mean, is there something that is driving your love for lending?
Well, I'm a puzzle guy, abstract
Okay.
puzzles. I grew up that's how my parents kept me busy, was just buying me these abstract puzzles. And the Rubik's Cube, when it came out, I spent 2 years trying to figure it out. So every deal is a puzzle, trying to figure out how to put it together. And I love just trying to figure out how to make things work. I love helping other people, helping clients, but I love helping the other loan officers. I love helping my underwriters. I'm the guy that when somebody has a complicated situation, they call me to try to talk it through and figure it out. So that's what drives me. It's what I enjoy.
Well, I won't ask you about the rates because those are always a tricky subject.
Right.
But what is the process? What I'm curious about is the process that a builder, or really a builder, goes through in order to build a spec home, or a developer that they need to get the funds to do a piece of property and get more houses out of the ground. And how does the bank play in that process?
Well, we work in tandem, me and the commercial side. So the builder can either get some type of, A&D loan, acquisition and development. They could get potential spec lending. They could get a line of credit, or they could send the client to me and get a construction perm loan.
Okay. Does before 2008, builders were speccing houses left and right.
Right.
How has that evolved over time, and what's the current temperature of builders speccing houses? I feel like there's a few more out there doing it now.
Well, if you remember 2008, it was devastating for a lot of custom home builders, the home builders that had spec lending. But it was also hard on the mortgage side as well, the lending side, because we had all this money out there and no ability to repay it. So I think that our bank, First Community Bank, was built on and founded on culture. And, part of that is that everybody matters. And I think that we really cared about our builders and worked hard to try to figure it out. But it was also a difficult time for us. And so you saw the spec lending just go away. And even the construction perm side, there's some banks that were the leaders in construction perm lending that aren't even doing it at all anymore. But we did not have an appetite for spec lending or A&D stuff, but we are coming back around and we're more receptive to it. So we are willing to talk to developers. We are willing to talk to builders. And so we always say, like my favorite thing that a CPA would say is that it depends. So the same thing, everything is case by case. It depends.
Okay. Well, I mean, on brand, you're building communities, right?
Absolutely.
So
Community bank.
community. And one of the things that we at the BIA are trying to do is just help support builders and people associated with the building industry. How do you feel like your role as a board member kind of contributes to that?
Well, I think in a lot of different ways. First of all, I always like to kind of back up and look at things on a macro level. And, we're very fortunate to be in this industry, right, that provides an income for us, which puts a roof over our heads, puts food on the table, gas in the cars, clothes on our back, allowed me to send my daughter to college, right, allows us to go on vacation, and allows us to enjoy our lives. But if we didn't have the industry itself, then we wouldn't have any of that. And so by being involved in the BIA, I'm involved, especially on the board, I'm involved at every level. I'm involved at the advocacy level, which, Andy Evans talked about on the podcast here. I'm involved in the networking aspect of it, which is building relationships with other people in our industry. There's the expertise side of it. I'm able to lend my expertise. I've been doing this 27 years. So I'm involved on the board. I'm involved on the membership committee. I go to all the council events. I go to the networking events. So it's a very broad, perspective.
Yeah. Now, talk to me a little bit about the membership side of it. Like, how many members does the BIA have right now, and what are we looking to gain?
Well, roughly we have 624 members. We have a retention rate of about 60%, and our goal, the membership committee's goal, is to grow by 100 net members in 2025, and to increase our retention rate to 70%. And when you crunch those numbers, that means that we need 290 gross members in 2025 to basically net back to 100. So we'd like to see 725 to 750 total members by the end of this year.
If someone's not a member, what's the best way to become a member?
To reach out, you could call me. You can call the BIA office. You can email the BIA. You can go to any one of the networking events that we have. We have 4 general membership meetings every year. The Sales and Marketing Council has the Cocktails and Connections, which is a great event. I love that event. That's monthly. It's the 3rd Wednesday of every month. Just show up.
So there's a lot of social events that the BIA puts on, and that really brings the groups together, allows them to, let their hair down a little bit, which I've always found very fun and worthwhile. But talk to me a little bit about the value of the BIA beyond the social aspect.
Well, the BIA has what they call the 6 pillars, which are the advocacy aspect of it, the expertise, the knowledge, the networking, the charity, and then the benefits. So the advocacy, I think, is what most people lose sight of. And our job as an association is to maintain good relationships with our local politicians and councils. Because that isn't always the best relationship, right? We've gone to where we work well together to not so well together, but that's part of the board's responsibility, is to make sure that we are focused on that. And obviously there are 2 areas right now that we've gone through. One is the Lexington County Council and the restrictions that they've put on new construction there. I think Kershaw County right now has, they're charging $80 for anyone that is involved in the construction of a house. Like Brandon Jeffcoat, you had him here. He's got to pay $80 just to go treat a house. So, that's where we get involved and try to find more equitable solutions for everybody involved, including the county.
So that's definitely a trickle down effect. So
Correct.
If you are a HVAC guy, you're being helped out by the advocacy.
Correct.
And that is in turn a benefit.
Correct.
What other benefits might people find?
So the expertise aspect of it is that you've got all of these different industries, people like me, you got realtors, you have HVAC companies and termite companies and home inspectors, the builders, the trades, the subs, all of these people that are involved that have years of experience, and all that combines, and that expertise. The knowledge is the training that we offer through the BIA. We offer educational courses for builders. Part of what we're working on right now is the membership committee is to create more educational aspects. I've met with a a local real estate attorney here who does a lot of continuing ed training for realtors that he's going to come and join us on our committee to try to help us develop workshops and training for our members. We're going to continue to try to augment what Ben and the BIA already do for the builders and the trades. And then we want to try to provide workshops for the public that we can. A great example is, you want to remodel your house. How do you go about that? How do you figure out, do you hire an architect or do you go straight to the contractor? How do you negotiate a contract? How do you implement the contract, do the work, manage the draws? How does all that work? Do you get financing for it? So we want to create workshops that will basically bring the public and the members together and help everybody.
I think that's absolutely a great idea. Yeah. One of the, so my dad, he was a general contractor for 50 years. We're from Wisconsin originally, so he started up there. And in 2018, I convinced him to move down here, and
warmer weather.
I mean, he was just surviving after the recession, and I mean, at one point we had 50 carpenters. I mean, it was a massive operation, and
right.
He's one of those guys that could do everything on a house, knew how to build everything, but could actually do it if he needed to, and I moved him down here. And one of the things that I found surprising with the BIA, and that I've kind of been pushing for this, is a pipeline for licensees, right? Because we didn't have reciprocity from Wisconsin down to South Carolina. So he had to go through the whole process of getting his license again, even though he's been a master general contractor for 45 years at the time. And having the BIA be that kind of advocate, educator, that source for people to say, okay, I've been a journeyman construction worker for years, but I'm ready to do my own thing. I don't necessarily know how to get to that point, but as the BIA can guide them through that process with insurance and the testing and the education, and then they become members, and that would grow the growth of it. So I'd like to see that as part of that educational process, and really spur on that workforce development that we really need in the industry. Do you have any ideas of where you think the future of the BIA goes?
Well, I think that you're hitting the nail on the head, really, is to try to help educate. Well, I'll give you an example, is that I was involved with one of the builder workshops that we offered, and they brought a manufacturer in, and they had a guest speaker that trained all of the builders and their employees on how to apply the siding material in a way that added more strength to the structure itself. Instead of just putting the 4x8 sheets on the way everybody always did it, he showed them a system of being able to apply it that added strength to it. So that benefits everybody, right? And it helps broaden a perspective that people didn't have before. So they're out there doing the same thing. They're experts at it, but hey, this is how the manufacturer actually intends it to be put together. So I think that that's one great aspect of it. So if we can do that across the board for everybody in our industries, and that doesn't just mean the building side of it. It's the building industry. It's not the Home Builders Association anymore. It's the Building Industry Association. Mortgage guys, being able to help the mortgage people look at more creative ways to apply financing, because there's actually a way that you can structure a vanilla 30-year fixed rate mortgage instead of, let's say, a $350,000 price point. Instead of 20% down, which most people in that price point want to apply 20% down, you can put down 15%, have the same payment, maybe even a little bit lower, keeping about $13,000 in your pocket. It's just thinking outside the box. There's just different ways of being creative. So that's just a good aspect to it.
So how, on the mortgage side of things, what does the future look like on that realm for that part of the industry?
Well, I think automation, is the future. 27 years ago, I met with every client. Met with them and did the application face to face. And even before I got involved, you didn't have the ability to pull credit, online. You didn't have the ability to run automated underwriting, but that's where everything is going. So now it's more convenient for customers. They don't want to meet face to face. They don't want to spend the time to come see me during work hours. So I think things will just become more automatedly interfaced, but yet being a community bank, we're still going to be small, local, which is, one of the things I love about it. We've got an 803 area code, right? We've got our whole operation center is in Lexington, right over on South Lake Drive. I was just there Tuesday for an all teams meeting. So all of our underwriters and processors, the closers, the post closers, our appraisal specialist, everybody is in the same location. And so we still have that personal touch, but automation will continue to make things easier, smoother. And, like right now we have the ability a client can upload everything directly into their file. I think eventually what's going to happen is as those files are being uploaded, you'll see a pre-underwrite from everything that's being unloaded. The systems will be able to scan the documents and read the documents and actually understand how to put it together with the loan underwriting process. So.
Well, I've used First Community Bank a few times, and actually our current mortgage is under First Community Bank. But one of the things that I've enjoyed about it is that personal connection. Like I know I can get the loan officers that I use on the phone, discuss scenarios because I'm an outside the box thinker. like I might not have the most perfect set of documents for you to approve that loan without any hesitation. So, but the ability for that flexibility really is to say, okay, here's the scenario. How can we make it work for everybody?
Right.
How can we fulfill the customer's needs and still, turn a profit and make sure it's a secured loan and all that other good stuff that needs to go into it. But like the idea of just everything being automated feels like it would have to be just rubber stamped, and that personal touch I think is going to come into play.
I don't think you can avoid it. I think you have to maintain the personal touch in spite of technology, because technology is going to continue to grow, critical mass, it's just going to keep getting better and better, faster and faster. But we're going to have to maintain the personal touch. And 11 years ago, I've been with the bank for 11 years, and where I was before, one of the largest banks in the country, and it was a difficult process there. And this is what I learned. I love this. I had this conversation with Mike Krapps, who was one of the founders of the bank, that every business is created to serve three parties. It's the customer, the employee, and the shareholder. But the larger that company is, the more it's all about the shareholder. This top person at the very top, as long as stock prices are doing well and shareholders are happy, that job is secure, that person is happy. When, however, stock prices drop, these people are unhappy with this person, that person puts a ton of pressure down on everybody else. And it's all about cross-selling to get stock prices up. So when I met with Mike and I was telling him what I was experiencing, he said, well, we believe that if we treat you right, you're going to treat the customer right, and the customer will treat the shareholder right. And that's really what it's all about. We are treated very well as employees, all the way to the top, from ELT, the founders of the bank. And so we feel loved and appreciated and valued, and so that's how we interact with our customers as well.
That's definitely the secret sauce, right?
Right, exactly.
What do you feel like is something that you would want to tell a new potential member to the BIA? Like, this is, if I need to tell you one thing to say, this is what you're going to, like, what's that thing?
Get involved.
Get involved.
I mean, bottom line is that you are going to have a career that will provide greatly for you. no matter what you're in, no matter what line of business you're in this industry, it's going to be a great business and a great income that will provide for you. But it will get even better as you get involved, because the more involved you are, the more people you're going to meet, the better your relationships are going to be, and it pays dividends.
But what if I'm not an outgoing guy? What if I am, want to sit on the side and observe? Am I still going to get something out of it, or?
Well, my daughter says that I'm an extroverted introvert, right? I would much rather be sitting at home in my little space, in my thoughts, but I'm in an industry that requires me to be extroverted on some level. Mm-hmm. So the reality is that life is about people and relationships, and the better we are at relationships, the more successful we'll be at life. So I would just grin and bear it.
Man up.
That's right. If you're introverted, just try to get outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, that's a good advice.
Mm-hmm.
What was like one of your favorite things that's happened to you because of your association with the BIA?
Well, that would be very hard to put like one experience on. But I tell you, one of the things that I really enjoy the most is the golf tournament.
Yeah.
It's one of the best golf tournaments around. There are plenty of golf tournaments to get involved in, but the BIA by far has the greatest, most fun golf tournament.
I would have to agree.
Yeah. But ultimately, it's the people that I know through my involvement in the BIA. I think Ben and I have both been around about the same time, somewhere in that 25 to 27 year range. And here he is now. He's the CEO, and I'm serving on the board with him.
Yeah.
So, Brandon Jeffcoat, he's the president of the BIA. He and I have known each other quite a while. The relationships are the most fun aspect of it.
If you were to say, if you were to say, I joined the BIA and this happened because I joined the BIA, what would that be?
Well, first of all, I'd say that I joined the BIA because I was told to join the BIA. I think a lot of people, you either join because you want to join.
That's how I got involved.
Exactly right, because your boss says, I want you to join the BIA. Mm-hmm. And I did it because my boss told me to do it. And so I was kind of going through the motions, at first. But what I noticed is that because of my involvement, I would have people that would call me and ask me to help them out. They'd send me clients, they would send me their family members, they would send me their friends. And that was because I was involved. They saw me involved. They saw that I cared about, my job in my industry. And so, being seen as an expert and somebody, and as someone who really cares, mm-hmm. I think that's what I'm most proud of as far as my involvement, because I didn't see that at all in the beginning. And in the beginning, it was like, okay, I got to show up and I got to be, at these meetings, and I was doing it because I had to do it. But
now you're doing it because you want to do it.
I love doing it. Yeah, love being involved. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you sitting down with me for a few minutes and just discussing the BIA and the membership and how things are going. We have we have a quarter of the way through this year so far, so
almost
we got almost 3/4 of the way. Yeah. How many more of those 250 we need to get?
So we have, I believe the last count was 35 new members have joined.
That's awesome.
But I saw a list. I can't tell you how many that was, but I'd say we're over 40 already.
Okay.
So we're doing good.
Yeah. If you are interested in joining the BIA, please reach out to someone in the BIA or the BIA directly. We'd love to have you part of this association. We know you're going to get a lot out of it, education-wise, social-wise, and the advocacy is that special bond behind the industry that's pushing it forward. Russ, thank you so much for being here with me today on the BIA podcast.
Appreciate you.
We'll see you next time.